All right, so I'm going to try again to respond or to answer in a way some of these concepts. Um, so again, referring back to the comment save or die and the follow-up conversation, my follow-up video, and I want to make this clear. Um, Sometimes I can be an asshole. The world is full of assholes, and they are allowed to be assholes. Uh, I try not to be, but sometimes I can be an asshole. So I'm going to be honest about that, but I'm going to understand that we tend to be passionate about the hobby. People have opinions, and sometimes we communicate those things well, sometimes we do not. But listen, none of us are, going to do this thing perfectly. But so I want to talk about this from another perspective because I think there's a complete misunderstanding. Okay, and I'm going to try this again. There is role playing, and then there is gaming, and then there's this thing called role play gaming. Okay, I think we all agree on that. How we choose to role play is quite literally going to be dictated by the group and how they want to do the thing. But it's also going to be directly impacted by the game itself, the intent of the game, the mechanics of the game. Now I can strong arm a square peg into a round hole, of course, or I can just accept that I'm playing a game and I'm going to from that the mechanics of that thing, that experience, how we communicate as a table, how we communicate as a GM, and how the mechanics inform me. It's going to impact how I communicate with the table. If I'm playing a table with maps and minis, I'm going to communicate a little differently, right? Doesn't mean the role play leaves the table. It means I'm going to communicate leaving character play and I'm going to be in character and out of character, etc. Why? Because I'm comfortable doing that, not because of any other reason, right? If I play with a group that says let's not ever leave character, well then that's going to be hard for me, right? Um, can I do it? Probably. I don't know if I would be having fun in the long term. So I like to have role play and I like to recognize we're playing a game. So I didn't used to be that way, right? I used to be very much offended by the existence of maps and minis. I used to very much be offended by some rules jarring me out of this state of consciousness. And for a guy who's only started playing in 2010, right, as a player, it took me a long time to get to this stage, actually, a stage where most people are going to go, that's a pretty casual way of role playing. Yeah, but I'm also at my most happy. I'm engaging the game, whatever game that is, the mechanics of that game, whatever game that is, and I get a little role play in if I want to. But I first and foremost treat it as a game, and then I attempt to role play when I can, right? Okay. For what that is worth, right? I've said before, I don't believe there's a right way or wrong way to do this gaming thing. Excuse me, this role play thing. There is a right way and a wrong way to play the game. If Pathfinder has rules for Bull Rush, then I respect those rules. I'm not going to break them and I'm not going to cheat. And I'm not going to tolerate other players who want to cheat. So we end up either with having to check somebody, say, hey, dude, those aren't the rules, or we end up flipping through books with rules lawyers, etc. Or you find this group where everybody respects the game and they all try to abide by the rules and we're having fun, right? We're doing the Pathfinder thing or the whatever game you want to use. So coming back around to this, I am a rules as written guy, right? Does that mean that's all I do? Of course not. We have never, it's rare that we play anything rules as written for any period of time before we all decide we don't like something and we change it. This happened to Dragon Slayer. After our first critical, I don't like fumbles. I don't like critical hits. Our first critical, I think we all kind of felt the same way. At least it came up in topic in Discord. We all said, I don't know about this critical hit thing. I chimed in and said, I hate fumbles and critical hits. A couple other guys, we voted, right? Because it's our table is about voting. So we voted. Do we want them in? Do we want them out? And the vote, I think, was 3-2. I think two of us voted we don't like criticals, right? One voted, are we playing rules as written or not, right? Which is an interesting vote because he was basically saying, if that's what the game says, why aren't we doing it? Which is what I should have voted, but I just voted I don't like criticals. And then we had a couple of people say, well, we like criticals and I believe we had one person break the tie. And so Dragon Slayer Barrel Maze has at least that one change, right? Okay. So the gist of what I'm saying is if a game has save or die and it's practiced a particular way, it's executed a particular way, it's adjudicated a particular way, I will accept it. Role play, be damned. How it affects my character is dead. He or she's dead. There's no other way around that. So I don't know what you would expect me to do. I don't know what we would do in the middle of a combat when a character goes down fighting three poison scorpions, how you would somehow that would become a role play moment. It could, but the players didn't choose to engage it that way. And I am dead. So how am I going to role play it? My character literally has been described as frothing in the mouth and dead. There is nothing else for me as a player to say. How the other players engage the moment in role play is quite literally on them. And the rules don't demand it. The rules only demand save or die. If you fail, your character is eliminated from play. That's the rule. So I've said it before. There are mechanisms in lots of games I don't like, but I wouldn't call them a problem. I just don't play those games. If you think save or die is a problem, then my goal or my rule, my want would be let's vote on changing it, or let's pick a game that doesn't do it this way, or let's just not play games at all that have a save or die element. Technically, when I'm on my final hit point in a hit point bubble, the very next roll to attack me is a save or die roll. The last attack that hits and kills my character is a save or die play in every single game that has character death. It's just you're not rolling it, the other guy's rolling it. So all of these games that have an actual death switch where a character is eliminated from play, I don't care what game it is, every game that has combat and probably has the chance for your character to die, there is that moment where your character goes from surviving due to a rule or a lack of a rule or whatever to actually being eliminated from play. How you role play that or what the circumstances of the game around that are, I don't know. It depends on the game, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't have a problem with save or die. It's just part of the game we're playing. If I did, I would say to the guys, I don't like it. Let's reevaluate this. Or I would say, let's not play this game. So that's what I'm getting at. The Monopoly analogy is, listen, if you don't like that thing, you would say to your table before the game, hey guys, let's eliminate going to jail. They all would all talk about it, vote on it. And if they said no way, it's a critical part of the game, then you're either going to say, well, I don't want to play, guys, or you're going to play with go to jail. Or you're going to say, well, then let's go play strategic. Let's play something else. Let's play a different game. That's the point I'm trying to make. Why have a problem with anything? Just find something else or do what we all have been doing for 50 years, hot rod your game, right? And tell your table, this I like, this I don't like, right? And hopefully you give your players some room to say, well, yeah, well, we like that, but we don't like that. I don't know. Most GMs don't do that. Most GMs literally hand out a thing saying, this are the rules, take it or leave it. And there might be some quibbles and there might be some arguments, but most GMs, with an iron fist, hand out a pre-campaign checklist that says these things are the rules we're going to be using today. Chris Donnerman has a pre-session, pre-campaign checklist that he advises you hand out to the players, not asking what they would like to do, telling them what we're doing. So having a problem with something is, communication. I have a problem with text communication because I very often misinterpret the tone that somebody uses. That's happened to me in text, and obviously, texting is a dangerous thing. Commenting is a dangerous thing because I don't always get your tone. It was clear in my video. Yep, I could be a patronizing asshole too, and we all can, right? Especially when the comment smacked of the same type of elitist thing. I'm hearing that we don't role play. Well, again, your definition of role play is going to be different than my definition of role play. Your desire of how you use techniques to role play is your business, and ours is ours. The only people I care about at the table are the people I'm playing with. And if my buddies at the table come to me and say, Jay, you suck. Jay, you're not role playing properly. Jay, you're not following the rules. Then we can attempt to adjudicate a conclusion to that that's positive for everybody. or I can leave the game, or I can be asked to leave the game, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm only concerned about the human beings in the situation I'm in playing with. Do I play all of our games this way? Oh, hell no. And there'll be people who claim I do. Well, you can watch our Dark Age of Man sessions. You can watch the sessions that I've played in all over YouTube for 14 years. I don't do this the same way in every game. Lately, I have enjoyed D20 and I've enjoyed it in this, what I call a sweet spot for me. There is some in character, there is some out of character, there is some meta talk, there is some game respect. I don't mind the game. Matter of fact, I've grown to actually appreciate the game. I want to see the dice. I want to see the mechanism. I want to understand the strategy. I want to engage the tactics. 5 years ago, I would have said boo to Pathfinder. 10 years ago, I said I hated Pathfinder. I'm a different cat now. I would engage Pathfinder full bore if I'm playing Pathfinder. If I'm playing Burning Will, I would attempt to engage that intent, the game's design intent there. So I think we can be flexible. I think we can do everything a little bit. So what the real communication problem here is, I think, if I'm going to reach out, maybe it's the effect on role play that we're miscommunicating about, because I'm not certain um, uh, if we're not in agreement on terms, what is role playing? If we're not in agreement on those things, then it's difficult to discuss whether a mechanic is broken or not. I don't believe it's broken. I don't believe it's a problem. I believe it works literally as intended. That the consequence of that intended mechanic may have an adverse effect upon role play. This is another conversation, and it's a conversation worth having. And it's a conversation probably better had by people who are coming from it from a role-playing perspective first. I play D20, old school OSR, first as a game with role-playing elements, not as a role-playing social activity with some game elements, right? When I do Dark Age of Man, I tackle it from a completely different mind space. Again, that doesn't mean there won't be meta talk, because I'm okay with there being meta talk. I'm very comfortable with role playing the way I role play. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Role playing, despite what people say, role playing is not acting. Role playing is not a spectator sport, right? The advent of actual plays on YouTube have put under the light how guys do this thing, and it's become something you can easily scrutinize. You can rip guys for being delusional, and wow, those guys are like out there. They're wearing ears and they're wearing costumes and whatever. You can rip that if you want to, or you can rip how those guys are having a joke or a laugh. The reality is, role playing is a thing you're supposed to do. It's not something you're supposed to watch. So when I hear somebody say, we want our APs to be watchable, infinitely watchable. We want our actual plays to be like old radio shows. Oh, then you are saying you are acting. Then write a script, hit the lines, and make a radio program on YouTube. I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that. But the minute you tell me we want our actual plays to look, where the game isn't there, and we want our actual plays to be entertaining, we want people to watch them and engage them, that is a goal worth having. That is a goal worth having. But to say that's the standard for every AP that goes up on YouTube, it's a bad standard, because most of us don't care if it's easy to listen to, or if it's fun to watch, or if it sounds like a radio program. But it's a great goal to have if that's what you're trying to do. But most tables are trying to play a game. Most tables are the guy's trying to be an elf magic user and kill the evil goblins and get their treasure, right? In D&D, right? And other games, a different thing, right? So it's, again, we have this where we are grading everybody by a particular standard. And when you're going to grade other people's play or other people's want to do a thing a certain way, and when you grade it, the minute you grade it and you classify it, that becomes elitist behavior. It may not be elitist to want to do a thing a certain way. I agree, it's not. It becomes elitist when you start judging everybody else by how they do the thing. When you classify what you're doing is better than somebody else, that's elitist behavior. And when you say, hey, that game sucks because of this, I say that's elitism because, again, they're two different things. If you don't like it, don't play it, get away from it, right? So, but yeah, I will acknowledge that I have been and can be an asshole. The world is full of assholes. I will also acknowledge I'm pretty fair. I mean, most guys won't make this video, and they won't be willing to admit their own faults, and they won't be willing to discuss this thing. Of course I will. And the reality is, um, we are in a public space, and so people are going to say what they say. They're going to make their comments. They're going to do what they do. And hey, the minute I put myself out here, they are allowed to be good about that, invite me to conversation, or just dog me. That's their way about going about doing things. So be it. It doesn't ingratiate me to having a future relationship and conversation with people like that. So I attempt to reach out and comment and make sure things are understood. I attempt to make videos in which I can hopefully speak to Drew and Fez and speak to John and speak to anyone else and try to make sure they understand where I'm coming from. It's not personal, right? So again, it may come off as it's personal. I'm responding directly to you. So in that sense, it's personal, but I don't mean it to be a personal assault, etc. Any more than you mean it to be, hopefully, you don't mean it to be in a personal assault on me. It's just the way human beings communicate, and communicating via text and comments, via video, etc., etc. I'll say this: I prefer rules as written. Rarely do we ever execute anything for any period of time. Rules is written because we all have preferences. We all find there's a thing that we just don't like. I wouldn't say it's a problem. Criticals aren't a problem. See, so when the group comes together and says, I don't know if I like critical hits and fumbles, guys, and I say, oh, dude, I hate critical hits and fumbles. I didn't say there's a problem with critical hits and fumbles because there's not. They function. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. We don't like that effect upon the game. That's not a problem. It's just a thing we don't like. Save or die is a thing, and it's a thing I'm okay with, and it's a thing I think most of the guys at the table are okay with. But there's not a problem with the mechanic. And that's where I think we're miscommunicating. I'm talking about there's no problem with death in a game. There's no problem with save or die mechanic. Now, if you're talking about how it informs role play, we got another conversation here, and I'm not certain I can partake because it didn't affect my role play. My character ceased to exist. Therefore, there is no role play for me until I can make up a new character. If you want to talk about the effect of the mechanic on the game itself, I think you made that argument well. I don't disagree with it. Matter of fact, I think I commented this morning on your comment. I don't disagree. We don't disagree with what Save or Die does as an effect. We only disagree with whether there's a problem with it or not. I don't have a problem with it, right? And arguing with me about me not having a problem is a waste of your breath because I don't have a problem with it. If you want to discuss the effect of Save or Die and how it negatively impacts role playing, well, then that's a conversation that's interesting. And I might have an opinion on that. However, I'm not certain I would because I don't know if we agree on the term role playing. So I think I've clarified this. Uh, I respect rules and design intent. So and I assume that all authors of games have an intent. Let's put it this way. I would assume that when somebody writes a game or creates a game, they actually know what they're doing. They actually know that when they create a rule, it's going to cause an effect on play and on strategy and tactics, and of course, maybe on role play if they care at all about role play. I would argue early D&D didn't care at all about role play. I would argue, even according to the elusive shift, Gary Gygax at the beginning was arguing with people that no, this isn't about role playing, right? I think he later started to accept his own success and couldn't fight the role play ramifications. But I don't think Gary necessarily cared first about role play. I think he cared first about the game itself, the engine itself, the adjudication of a very complicated space because it's not like a board game where everything is in a controlled environment, right? It instantly takes on another level when a guy says, can I fly? And you got to go, okay, do you mean literally fly? Well, okay, George, let's talk about this. You could if this, and this. It becomes a debate, right? If it's not in the rules, so to speak, right? So we've all encountered that guy who has a question that isn't in the rules. That's what this is all about. Rulings over rules, right? RAW versus RaW. These debates and these conversations have gone on a long time. I do not have a problem with mechanics. If I don't like them, I either want to change them or I want to move away from a game that creates an environment I don't want to be a part of. I don't like writer room gaming where we all discuss how we want the story to go. I don't like it. It's not a problem. I just don't like it. So anyway, hopefully this clarifies some of my where I'm coming from. I certainly am willing to admit I can be an asshole, as I think we all can be. We may not mean to be, and sometimes we do mean to be, right? But I think this has clarified my stance, right? Number one, you're not going to irritate me about role playing because I do it the way I want to do it. And as long as the people I play with, it's not going to bother me. People are free to go, oh my God, these guys suck. That's, that's their take. Their standards are different than ours. They can say, oh my God, I hate D&D 5th edition. You're entitled to hate it. You can hate D&D 5th edition, right? When you start outlining why you hate it, I might listen, I might agree, I might disagree. But when somebody says that a particular mechanic is a problem, then I have to say, oh, well, not for me, it isn't. The mechanic works as designed. I hear what you're saying. It's a problem for you because of this. I don't disagree with that. So anyway, there we have it. And as far as character death, I think I made that clear. My goal with my point about character death is we're playing a game that's about adventure in which you're going to die. I mean, these are just the whole premise of dungeon crawling is it's a short life. These are soldiers. These are people gambling their lives to get a little gold. And I'm not certain that they deserve anything more than he had a soldier's death. Not yet, not yet. Maybe once guy's up to level 7 or something, and we've seen some kind of effect. But I would argue in Barrel Maze, the story is going to be what happens. It's not going to be about our character arcs. And that's something else that's worth talking about. Do you think it's role playing if there is no character arc? I say we can role play and our characters don't have to have an arc. They don't have to have an overarching story or theme that runs through the campaign. Matter of fact, I would argue in D20, you are again running up against the design intent if you say it should, because it isn't built that way. And you're not going to probably have stories about your characters and their arc. Not in Barrel Maze, not in I'm not saying it hasn't happened and people don't try specifically to create that, but there are better games for that. I would argue Dragon Age. The age system is far better for character-focused campaigns in which it's going to be about our characters and it's going to be about an arc and life and death, etc., is a different level of meaning. So yeah, not all death has meaning. Not all characters living has meaning. So we are playing a particular game a particular way, and I don't ever confuse. And I'll say it one final time: I never confuse gaming with role playing. First, it's a game, and we can role play with it. Depending on the game, some games are going to draw out a lot more role playing, and they're going to minimize gaming. It depends on what you're doing. So I wouldn't say let's have a save or die in every game I play, right? Okay. So anyway, hopefully this clarifies where I stand. All right, bye.